every time I pass by that corner, I just think about that moment, and I think about Ken sliding off and making it back. After shooting cars and car culture for over 20 years, I've finally decided to put my favorite photos into a book. And of course, that means that I have my most famous shot in there, which is from Climbkhana of Ken Block at Evo Corner, hanging two wheels off in the Unicorn version 2. Climbkhana was a dream project. Up until that point, I've shot the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb for a couple years. I started in 2011, which was the last year when part of the course was still dirt. And up until that point, I've just been able to shoot the Race to the Clouds. I haven't had a chance to do a special project of any sort. So when Ken told us that he wanted to do Climbkhana, I was so excited. Being able to shoot that location with a special car, with way more of a controlled scenario, was such a dream situation. Part of it is because we have no control during race week at all. The way the sun is, the time of day, the cars that are running, where you can shoot from a lot of times, it was all very limited, and it still is very limited. And most of it is just for safety concerns, because honestly, it's one of the most dangerous hill climbs in the world. But it is also, in my opinion, the most beautiful racetrack. It's like Mars. It looks so different, especially above tree line. And in my eyes, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be great, and I'm going to be able to make really some iconic shots, especially with Ken behind the wheel. What I didn't realize was that this would be this project that would take 2 years and 12 days to shoot 3 separate trips to Pikes Peak. And the reason why it took 3 separate trips was because the Unicorn version 2, once it got twin turbos, and once they put it on methanol, making 1,400 horsepower, it just couldn't handle the elevation. Typically, when we're shooting Gymkhana, it takes about 4 to 5 days. For example, Gymkhana 7 took 4 full days in Los Angeles, and that 5th day was just that last shot above the Hollywood sign. The amount of people we have on set is typically between 100 to 200, and it is a huge production. Climbkhana was huge also, but the car just wouldn't cooperate. There was always some kind of issue with the crankcase pressure, or the motor would blow and they would go through motors, or there was always something going on with the car. And then when the car was working, the weather wouldn't cooperate. Anytime we go to Pikes Peak in the summertime, especially now during the race in June, we're scrambling to get winter clothes. And it's because even though it's the middle of summer and it's very, very warm at the base of the mountain in Colorado Springs, at the summit and above tree line, it could be below freezing. It could hail, it could snow, there could be sleet, there could be sideways rain. We've seen it all. It's just a completely different weather system. Of course, that's just due to the insane altitude. It's 40% less oxygen, so we're pushing the cars and we're pushing ourselves so much harder just to be able to shoot in those conditions. First trip out there was great. We were able to get a lot of shots, but as soon as the car started having issues, I think they even did 2 engine swaps the first trip. We knew we had to push it back. And the problem is you only have a very specific window to be able to shoot at Pikes Peak. And all of it is just due to the weather. In the summertime, it's great, but pretty much every day there's thunderstorms up there. And there's this area above tree line, I think it's like 12,500 or 13,000 feet called Devil's Playground. I think it's one of the most lightning struck places in all of the US. There are lightning storms every single day in the afternoon. So we always had to cut our days short. So between the weather and between the car not cooperating, it was an absolute challenge. So we pushed that shoot back to another shoot, and the team, Hoonigan Racing Division, they thought they fixed their issues having all that boost in that Mustang, and they just unfortunately couldn't figure it out. It still had issues, and Ken also did have a off-track incident around that area where he did that really famous slide. So car was down again, and then we had to wait almost another year to go back to the mountain for that really iconic shot. Luckily, by the time we went there for the third time, the team did a bunch of high altitude testing, the highest altitude airport in the US. So they really pushed this engine to make 1,400 horsepower at altitude. And they just pushed it and pushed it and pushed it, and they finally figured it out. So then I think that's pretty much the final form of this car that you see now. It being so fast, as you have probably seen at This Versus That, it drag racing like full-on drag cars and still being so fast. What's easy to forget is that this vehicle was never meant to be a race car. It was meant to be something for filming, and it was designed for that, right? There's just so many more reinforcement places to even add cameras, and all of that was really well thought out. During the filming of Climbkhana, they had so many crazy rigs where the camera would shoot out or the GoPros would go through the car, and these cool shots that you couldn't get on a normal race car. There was this idea for this shot where Ken would slide that really famous corner, as we have seen. It's called Evo Corner because an Evo went off in 2012. It was really bad. Luckily, I think his name was Jeremy Foley. He got stuck on a rock and it didn't continue. If the Evo didn't stop and it continued down the mountain, who knows what would have happened. But maybe something that's really lost when you look at the picture and when you look at the film is how steep that hill is. Even if you trip and fall over that edge, I mean, you'll be rolling for a long time before you get stopped by a rock, which it's so crazy because I've been the official photographer for many years now at Pikes Peak, and every time I pass by that corner, I just think about that moment, and I think about Ken sliding off and making it back. When it came time to shoot this, I was thinking I have to do something grand because it's going to turn into an iconic shot. Like, this is the thumbnail shot. And every single time I'm on set with Ken or Travis Pastrana, the Hoonigans, BJ Baldwin, whomever, my sole purpose is to get that thumbnail shot. I don't have the same agenda as the video folks. I don't have the same thought process as the video side. I can go wherever, I can shoot whatever. But my sole goal was to get something that was very eye-catching to get more clicks. So I'm very proud of the fact that many of these Gymkhana films, including Climbkhana, you look at the thumbnail, it's the first thing you see, it's something that I created. And I'm drawing in the viewers. So I even have these moments and these meetings with Brian Scotto where he tells me what he thinks will happen for me to get that thumbnail shot. And in his mind, he's like, this is it. You have to really focus on this. So I thought to myself, okay, I have to do something really grand. I have to do a stitched panoramic shot that is a 1:3 ratio to show the entire scene of the mountain, not just like a zoomed in picture of him dipping 2 tires off. I wanted to show the entire scene, including the elevation, including the road, all of it. It was me, Brian Scotto, and a cam on a tripod at the very next tiny little outcropping where the road just has a little bit of room for even half a car. It's not even a full car. You can't park a full car in this area. But it was just enough room for us to be off the road and in the dirt, and it was just three of us. There were, of course, other cameras like B cam, C cam, D cam, drone, all that other stuff going on, but we were the closest to the action. We were right there. Ken, he was just going through his motions, going through his thing. He was walking the corner. He was visualizing it. And we all knew, like, this was the big moment. This was the shot, and this was the stunt that was going to put it over the top. He went to that corner, and he stacked a couple rocks up right at the edge, just so he has a reference point of where to slide the car. And it's just so crazy to me because if he went just a little past those stacked rocks, he would have gone off. If he hit them with the rear tire, it would have been basically the perfect shot, which is what you see in the film. But he had the foresight to, okay, I need some visual reference because that corner has no guardrails. And I could see why Jeremy went off in his Evo, because when you come up to that corner, when you're driving on the normal road during a public day, you have no reference at all. It's just sky. So you set that up, and then the POV team set up a couple GoPros around that area too, thinking that he would probably hit one of the GoPros or spray him with some dirt. When it came time to shoot it, it was really tense. It was communication on the radio between the team and the camera team and the race team. And it was just all of this communication going on. And they sent him for the first time, came around the corner and did like a half spin. And everybody's heart stopped because he stopped in the middle of the corner. It wasn't usable for the film, but we were all like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that, Half spin, tires off, front tires still on the road. And we're thinking, he just has to do this to get it over with, In my eyes, I was thinking, okay, I have this one opportunity to get this shot that potentially could become iconic. So in order to do the stitched shot, when you look at the overall 1x3 photo, it's actually not one photo. It's actually 20 or more photos stitched together. It was a cloudy day, so the clouds were kind of going in and out. And as Ken was doing each take, he did 3 takes, the light was changing, the conditions were changing, the color temperature was changing because of the clouds. So I kept having to tile this photo together. I just kept going, just one row by another row by another row. And then as soon as I finished, I would do it again. One row and another row and another row. I remember I had a Canon 1DX Mark II with a 135 f2, and I was shooting, I think at f2.8, just to give a little more depth so I can just get a little more information. And I locked my focus because I had an idea of where he would do his stunt. I did a autofocus point exactly where I was thinking he was going to go, and then I locked it. So it was manual focus, and if he slid earlier or later, I wouldn't have gotten it. But I made a pretty good guess of where he was going to be, and I just kept tiling. And then he came around for his second shot, and he did do a slide, and he did dip his tires. And at that point, we were happy because we already had a video in the bag. Everything was usable. It wasn't extraordinary, but it was still cool that he slid this corner that is really hair-raising. It's crazy to think that people go 10/10ths around this corner. Maybe one day I'll do it. But just especially around that time, we were thinking, this guy is insane. Like, there's a lot of things when I watch Ken from the outside, as a driver, I think to myself, man, that looks like so much fun. I wish I could do that. Or I wish I was in the car doing those donuts or figure eights or this crazy drift. That is something that's all you can. You know, you do you, you enjoy it. When he came around for the third time, which ended up being the shot that made it in the film and which ended up being my iconic photo, I just finished my tile and then I focused on trying to get that one shot of him with the roost of all of that dirt and dipping the tires, and the front tires you can clearly see clawing their way to try to basically get the car back onto the road. I just focused as much as I could to make sure I got it in frame, froze the action, because in my mind, my idea was to just take that one frame and put it back into the overall large 1:3 image, which is what I print out as like a 2 feet by 6 feet image or bigger. It's been blown up huge. Right now it's at the Peterson blown up. I don't even know how big, 20 feet by 60 feet or something. As soon as he did the slide, what you don't see is that he continues the drift and he transitions. And then he's all of a sudden sliding the other way, which is facing us. And we're on the inside of the corner, me, Scotto, and Matt Johnston, I think. And he uses us as like a clipping point. At that point, maybe it's safer to kind of continue a drift versus starting to straighten out, because he crashed there, exactly at that place, the last trip. And so maybe he was, in his eyes, he's like, okay, I'm going to do the drift and then do like a transition. And then that way I can straighten out when the road is straighter. So he legitimately clips our shins with his front bumper, maybe just by a couple feet. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. That's a moment when I think to myself, I wish I got into video and behind the scenes storytelling earlier in my career. But I'm glad that at that point in my career, I was just focused solely on still photography. My goal was to get the best and really push the hardest for Ken and the rest of the team. And I was just so proud of that photo, because as soon as he stopped, he turned back around, and you'll see in the Amazon series, I was so excited. I just went up to him, and while I don't really like to show people photos on the back of the camera because it's so small, I was just so proud of the fact that I got the photo, and of course he accomplished that insane stunt. He was stoked. Everybody was ecstatic that he got it and that he doesn't have to do it again. It's not really fair to compare my still photography to the video. And when I hear a lot of people compare the two, I just think to myself, it's not the same thing. He has the same thing that I do. He has that shot of him going off. But because I did a stitched photo and I showed the entire scene, it's just that one single frame overall big picture. And I really try with all my photography to tell it how it is and show what it was like at that moment and what I thought it looked like at that moment. I'm not trying to change the sky. I'm not trying to change the background. Maybe I'll take the porta potties out in the background or whatever in other pictures, but I try my best to be true to what was happening in front of me. And if you see that photo, what you'll notice is I left B-Cam in there. He's hiding in the mountain, pointing his camera with a tripod, this is my buddy Brandon Cotto, at Ken coming around the corner. And when you blow up the photo, you can actually even see the kind of like what he was pointing at. But of course, that photo of him just hanging out there waiting for Ken was when I was tiling the photo moments before Ken showed up. So in my eyes, it's still true to the scene, right? I didn't Photoshop him out because I didn't want to lie to the viewer like, hey, this is a perfect scene with Ken coming around the corner. I left everything in there. The GoPro eating off the mountain, all the rocks, you know, everything, including my buddy Brandon B-Cam in there on the inside of the corner. I left all of that because I just want to show what the scene looked like that day.
Today's video is brought to you by Avalon King, and right now Avalon King is in the middle of their 4th of July sale, and they've got some amazing deals, including up to 50% off a limited selection of their products and some very special deals just for VINwiki viewers. The best of all is their Armor Shield 9 DIY ceramic coating. I've used it on my cars for years and I love it because it's so easy to install. One person can coat an entire car in about an hour and a half, including the wheels and glass and everything else. It's so easy to put on. They give you an applicator, they give you a microfiber cloth, and it is a wonderful, wonderful product. One of these little bottles is enough for a small to medium-sized car, but order 2 if you've got something big. Visit them at the link in the description below for special offers for our viewers, and coat your car with their AS9 DIY ceramic coating. You can even coat your shower doors and things like that. It makes water, dust, dirt, everything just bead right off.